The stage is set. January 20th, Atlanta, Georgia. The Ohio State Buckeyes will be taking on the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. Later on in the episode, we'll have an early look at that game. I know we're, quite a ways off here, about a week away, but we're going to have an early look, and we're going to give our early thoughts on that. We're obviously going to have all kinds of content for the next week on that game, so make sure you follow along. Make sure you hit that subscribe button right now if you're tuning in. Click follow, follow on Apple, Spotify, all that good stuff. We're going to talk about our Cotton Bowl reaction, Ohio State taking down Texas 28-14, and we're going to talk about Orange Bowl reaction. Notre Dame and Penn State in a classic coming down to the wire, and just amazing games we got to watch. They were great games. The crowd, complaining about the playoff has been awful quiet the last couple weeks, so that's always a good thing. This is Always Talking Ball. Tyler Noe, Lance Barton. Lance, let's start off with a little news from a couple of brands out there, Georgia and Miami, where Carson Beck is following his girlfriend to Miami after spending 5 years in Athens, and he's going to, or 4 years in Athens, I'm not sure, but he's going to head down to South Beach, and he's going to play one more year in the college football ranks for Mario Cristobal.
Yeah, I mean, life could be much worse than getting whatever you believe is true or not, but the strong rumors being reported by a lot of folks that normally don't just report rumors, they normally report things that are facts, is that Carson Beck got somewhere just south of $4 million to come be QB1 for the Canes. So make you about $4 million, be the king of South Beach, hang out with your supermodel girlfriend, and sling a few tutties in the ACC. Life could get much worse for old Carson Beck. But, I mean, to be honest with you, man, the fit, I think, is a fantastic fit. As far as his skill set in Shannon Dawson's offense. He ran the air raid pretty much before he came to Miami, so he meshed his offense with Mario Cristobal's physical offensive line kind of running style there with the air raid principles, and it's obviously worked really well the first couple of years he's been there, especially when he has a great QB like Cam Ward. And I know Carson Beck, compared to what he did last year, had a rough season this year, but I don't put it all on him. I just don't. I know he seems to be a pretty polarizing guy, I guess, being QB1 for the Dogs for Georgia and dating one of the Cavender twins and getting the huge paycheck that he got to stay at Georgia. He seems to be under more of a microscope than most quarterbacks in college football and just didn't have that good of a year. But, dude, when your wide receiver core leads the nation in drops, there has to be something said for that. And in the bigger games that Georgia played in this year, man, the offensive line was pretty much garbage in pass blocking. They were. Yeah. I mean, Ole Miss was all over him. Bama was on him. Notre Dame, I know he didn't play in the Notre Dame game, but, you saw how bad that offensive line was when they played against Notre Dame and the pressure that they got on Stockton and the sack fumble. So gets a fresh new start in Miami. I don't know what if he comes in there with an actual Bulldog mindset and football is his primary concern, which is up in the air, considering getting millions of dollars and hang out with his Cavender twin girlfriend, and there in South Beach, a lot of distractions. So I don't know, but yeah. if football is his number one option and he's locked in playing QB1 for the Canes, I think he could have a really good year there. If it's not, it'll probably be what it was this year. It'll be up and down. He'll look like booty cheek sometimes, and he'll look elite. And there's that guy that was supposedly supposed to be the number one overall pick in the draft. There's that. You see that talented guy. So be interesting to see, man, what it's going to look like there in Miami.
Yeah, I mean, that's top 10 quarterback money if that's the correct figure. And he was not going to be a top 10 quarterback.
No.
So why the heck not? Why not go live down in Miami, hang out with your girlfriend, like you said, and just live it up for one more year in college, be the king of that university as long as you're winning, right? So every fan out there who, has something to say about Carson Beck, who, quote, hates him, I think this move to a school like Miami and the Canes and Michael Irvin and all this stuff, That makes him a little bit more hateable now. So it didn't do anything to he said people, people like him more. So
Right.
but bunch of fans out there, especially Georgia fans, claimed that game against Notre Dame would have been a little different if Carson Beck had played. Well, they're going to get their chance to see Carson Beck against Notre Dame week 1 next year on Labor Day weekend.
Yep.
And that game will take place in Miami. So it'll be a home game for him. The defense is going to look a heck of a lot different for Notre Dame. They get Florida next year again at home. They get Florida State. They get SMU. They get Virginia Tech. So, I mean, they've got a decent schedule as far as ACC teams goes. And I mean, we saw this year, like, Miami was given a lot of credit by the committee. So he's going to a place that, they're going to get a lot of credit regardless of who they play because either they were Miami or how bad they were beating people. And they're definitely going to have to shore up that defense for him for sure. He's not going to be, being able to lean on his defense like he did at Georgia. So
no, sidebar on that is Miami hired a defensive coordinator, the guy from Minnesota, who did a really good job for the Gophers this year. They had a top 10 defense and were really good in a lot of statistical categories. He was with Greg Schiano before he was at Minnesota at Rutgers, so he's got a good background. So I like the hire that they made there. So that'll be interesting to see what happens there with the Canes defense.
All right, let's get to it. Orange Bowl reaction. Notre Dame, Penn State, coming down to the wire, coming down to Mitch Jeter's leg, where Notre Dame takes it home, 27-24. Where do you want to start here, man? I mean, what a game! Tale of two halves.
Yeah, that's where I was going to go. Tale of two halves, man. I mean, really, the first half, like we did our halftime. We did a live hit there on X to break down that first half and just Penn State owning the line of scrimmage like they did in the first half, running the ball like they were, really both sides of the ball. White jerseys for Notre Dame, like we talked about, were just on skates on both sides of the line of scrimmage. And we talked about that. We said in the second half, and it wasn't just us, a lot of people were saying this, that this seemed like a game, even though that it was only 10-3, that Penn State was going to have to go out and lose in that second half. And that was not what happened. I mean, I know the interception later on with Aller ended up happening, but Notre Dame went out and took that game and won that game and made the adjustments they made in the second half. But I know the Drew Aller interception is going to be the thing that most people are going to talk about, like the reason they lost the game or whatever. But, dude, to dominate the way that they did in that first half and to only be up 10-3, there was nothing that went right for Notre Dame in that first half other than that flat that they threw to, was it Singleton or Allen that the pass? Singleton on the third down.
Yep.
3rd and goal from like the 2 or 3 yard line where they threw it out in the flat to a wide open, butt naked out in the middle of the field, nobody around him, Nick Singleton. And Singleton should have made that catch, but like that is just easy as could be, pitch and catch. You've got to put that ball on him. Correct. I mean, just stand there and put the ball on him, Aller. And he didn't. He threw a little bit behind him, made it a little bit of a tougher catch, and that's that.
Unless Drew Aller was thrown to Tyler Warren, he looked like just his throws looked tentative.
Yeah, I mean he was all the experts say that in bigger games like this, like when the juices are flowing a little more, the stress level's a little higher, the ball sails on you a little bit, you throw high a little bit. And there were a lot of throws that Aller made to dudes that were open in this game that were just a little high. And he was off. And he just didn't play well. He didn't. Like, he made a couple of decent throws, but overall he was extremely inconsistent, which is, if you look at his numbers, not to be a box score Barry here, but if you look at his numbers through the playoffs, Aller was not good overall in this playoff. Extremely inconsistent, very inefficient. And the run game, their defense forcing turnovers and their defense being as good as they were, in your words, masked deficiencies. The deficiencies that masked was Drew Aller.
Yeah.
And it showed up in that second half. But to only be up 10-3 at halftime, Steve Angeli, man, that drive that he led right before halftime, I think you could break this game down into a certain few, which most big games you can. Big games that are close games, you can break them down into a few plays or a few moments. And the flat pattern to Singleton where they underthrew it and they had to kick a field goal instead of scoring a touchdown. And then Steve Angeli, after Riley Leonard went down went into concussion protocol, when he led that drive and Notre Dame got a field goal out of it right before the half to cut that lead 10-3 and make it a one-possession game, it was – I know it never got to this point, but I used this analogy at halftime when I called my dad after we went live. I said that was almost like a moment like Notre Dame just couldn't move the ball really at all in that first half. And then the backup quarterback comes in, moves him down the field, has success in the passing game. Like you alluded to in our live hit, they'd really prepared for a more of a dual threat running type quarterback. Then all of a sudden they got this cat coming in and they're slinging it all over the yard. So they caught them off guard a little bit. But when they kicked that field goal to cut it to 10-3, it was like Rocky versus the Russian, Ivan Drago in the Rocky movie, where Rocky threw a haymaker and hit Drago in the face and cut him. And his trainer, Apollo Creed's trainer in the corner, started going, "See, he's not a machine. He's a man. Yeah. He bleeds just like you do." That was a moment like that.
Yeah.
Like Notre Dame, the confidence level, you could see it when they were running off the field, dude. Going off the field at halftime. Like, their confidence just shot up, went sky high. And I just think that was that moment that said, all right, we got punched in the mouth. We took a standing 8 count in the middle of the ring, spit the blood out, and let's go play ball now.
Yeah.
That's what it looked like.
Riley Leonard and everybody else really, but Riley Leonard gave Steve Angeli a ton of credit after the game.
Mm-hmm.
And, I mean, this is a dude Notre Dame has extreme confidence in. He was going to be the starting quarterback had Riley Leonard not transferred in. So they've got confidence in him. And Leonard, I mean, possibly the nicest person on the planet, just could not praise Angeli enough for that drive to end the first half, which was huge for Notre Dame. On the Penn State side, I mean, credit to Andy Kotelnicki. I think his scripted drives at the beginning of the game, even though they didn't result in points, he really created a lot of just Notre Dame defense being off balance for the rest of the half. And we talked about that. They were going on different cadences on that first drive. They were doing all their pre-snap motion stuff, which we knew they were going to bring out, but it seemed like they were doing a lot of it on that first drive. And honestly, as we watched the game back, it feels like they did a lot more on that first drive than really a lot of the other drives they had. But he really just, like you said, put Notre Dame on skates. They were thinking way too much the rest of that half. And when you think too much and when your eyes are going different directions pre-snap, it's hard to get off the ball and be fast. And I think in that second half, they really just started kind of just playing a lot more loose. Offense started performing, obviously, so it gives the defense some juice too. But, for them to go into the half down 10-3 after Penn State had just pushed them around, I mean, a 15-play, 90-yard drive where 13 of those plays were runs. You have not seen that happen to Notre Dame all season long. And rarely have you seen that happen to them, in the past 5 to 10 years. Like that just, you don't see that happen a lot. But they came out second half, man, completely different team. Got the ball to start the half, 3 straight runs with Jeremiah Love up the middle. Dan Orlovsky highlighted on his Twitter account that they started just blocking differently, different blocking schemes, pulling 2 guys, really getting a little more hat on Abdul Carter, who was wrecking the game in the first half.
He was, dude. He made some money in that game, bro. Not that he needed to, but he made some serious money.
He was smart. I think 4 hours after the game ended, he declared for the draft. So he's hopping on that opportunity right there. But they put a little more hat on him in the second half, went right down, scored that touchdown, and then from then we had a game. And defense came to play, held Penn State to a couple 3-and-outs, got the ball back. And that game was 10-10 going into the fourth quarter. And our boy here had under 45, and he's thinking, got a good under winner here. And like we said on our live, just an offensive explosion in the fourth quarter. And one of the first plays was probably one of the nastiest 2-yard runs that you'll ever see by Jeremiah Love, just willing it on one leg into the end zone.
Dude, if you could make one play, just show a video of one play to represent this Notre Dame season, this season as a whole, because there's no doubt, man, they're built on toughness. This Notre Dame team is. That play right there would represent this Notre Dame team for this whole year. Because you had it all. This Notre Dame team is injured all over the place.
Oh, man.
Just beat up as could be. And there's Jeremiah Love out there with this giant knee brace on and has the hardest 2-yard run you'll ever see for a touchdown. that had it all on that one run. So before the season started, I gave out all these lists. Like if you've been a long time listener, if I say a long time, I've been doing this a little over a year. But if you've been a listener to ours for a while, my affinity for coaches and talking about coordinators and assistants and all that in college football, and how much of an emphasis I put on that, because I just think that for you to be a super successful program at the college football level, obviously your head coach has to be really good, but you have to have the ability to talent acquisition, number one, and then number two, hire a staff around you that is elite. And these two teams that are about to play for the national championship, like, I don't even think this is a hot take. I think this is just factual, that these two teams have the best, number one and number two, of the combination of offensive coordinator and defensive coordinator in all of college football. And then when you take the fact that Marcus Freeman is such a really good defensive mind and pair him with Al Golden on the defensive side of the ball, and on offense for Ohio State, you've got Ryan Day paired with Chip Kelly on the offensive side of the ball, you get the results that you're getting right now. Now, to tie it back into Notre Dame, the halftime adjustments that Al Golden and Mike Denbrock that they made legendary was the difference in the game. It truly was. And Penn State's got a really good combination of OC and DC as well. But Al Golden making the adjustments that he made on the defensive side of the ball, and especially Denbrock, what he did was just incredible. And it won him the game. Notre Dame they ran the football. I love what Marcus Freeman said. It's like, look, it's a 7-point ball game. We're going to continue to be who we are. We're going to be physical first, and we're going to run the football.
He said it was all about running the ball and stopping the run. It hasn't changed since the beginning of the game.
Yep, which they did. But running the ball ended up doing something that you and I talked about in our live hit at halftime, that I said, I think that Notre Dame's going to have to try eventually to get this game on the perimeter a little more. And they did that. They started hitting receivers more. They started throwing the football a little more. Riley Leonard made the throws we needed to make, and his receivers made
the Notre Dame can't throw crowd is a little quiet.
Yeah, they were. That second half, Notre Dame turned it loose, especially in the fourth quarter. And
that's the thing. They've got dudes, but like if you watch their whole season, and the fact that they've just, especially in the playoffs against Georgia and Indiana, haven't needed to throw the ball to win games. And you're not going to throw the ball just for the sake of having passing yards. Like, you're going to do whatever it takes to win the game.
Yep, they're going to try their best to control the line of scrimmage first.
Yeah.
Then after that, they may try to throw it. But Penn State, correct me if I'm wrong, they didn't have a single catch by a wide receiver, right?
Yep, that was the first time in 20 seasons for Penn State that's happened.
That's unbelievable. Well, it's not unbelievable. It's actually
again, they don't have the best talent. We get that. But for a wide receiver
not to
have a single catch. Yeah, that's a huge problem.
That's a problem. Like, it's almost poetic justice that Penn State, like, you could point at a few things, reasons they lost the game. You can't sit there and get in a Final Four national semifinal in college football in 2024, 2025 college football, and you don't have a receiver that has any catches at all. That's a problem. And that's a look in the mirror type moment for Franklin and Kotelnicki and this staff, that, like, we saw Georgia after that Notre Dame game. What did it take? About 10 seconds for Kirby Smart to take a sip of his coffee the next morning and go, okay, Zachariah Branch, Noah Thomas, come on down, baby. Let's go. We lead the nation in drops, and we can't catch the ball at wide receiver. I'm going to go get 2 legit wide receivers.
Yeah.
After that game, if you're Penn State in the NIL era, I'm tampering my ass off with teams around the country. Which teams do I want to go get wide receivers from? And I'm going to go get me some receivers.
That's the thing, though. They did that last year with Julian Fleming.
And he was did he even play?
I don't know. I mean, that's the thing. They went and they got guys, but I don't know if it's their offense or it's the fact that Aller, I mean, at some point, I talked about this on another show. Steve Angeli in that into that first half, he was kind of throwing guys open to get down the field. Aller's he wasn't able to throw anybody open. If you look at his 12 completions or whatever he had, a lot of them to Tyler Warren and another tight end and some running backs, or I can't remember how many completions he had, but Kotelnicki was scheming them open.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they were motioning, and Warren was open. A couple tight ends were open, the running backs. When the pocket breaks down, he wasn't able to throw anybody open.
Nope. Yeah, that's an obvious problem. And in that second half, it's hard to score points and call plays when and to open up the offense as much as you want to open it up when you don't have receivers that can go get the football, or when your quarterback can't get him the rock. But again, the combination of Singleton, Allen, and Warren is special. Yeah. It is. And Penn State's going to be kicking themselves that they had that duo at tailback, a guy like Tyler Warren at tight end, who's one of the best overall football players in all of college football, a solid offensive line, and no receivers. If you have any receivers, you're probably in this national championship game. Yeah. Probably playing for a natty. But just wanted to touch on this. Obviously, we saw it, man. We called it. We knew it, that if Penn State were to lose this game, the James Franklin big game stuff would rear its ugly head. And I'm going to surprise some folks here. And we're not the podcast that normally just comes on here and sees how many clicks we can get with crazy, wild, hot. I'll throw out some takes, obviously, from time to time, but not your wild, crazy stuff just to say shit, just to get some clicks. We don't do that here. But I'm going to surprise some people here. I'm not on James Franklin. He's not on my bad side. I'm not going to do the whole like crush him because this was a national semifinal game and they lost on a field goal at the end of the game against a really good Notre Dame team. This was not James Franklin sucks in big games is the reason why they lost this game. They just played a really good football team. It was an absolute instant classic. They were 1 or 2 minutes away from playing for a national championship. I know there's people out there that will do it. They'll do it for us. But overall, I mean, this just came down to a couple of plays and a couple of moments. Penn State didn't make the plays. Notre Dame did make the plays. The interception there at the end of the game was obviously huge. And I know Franklin in bigger games has been known in the past to be a little more conservative. So you got to think with, what was it, like 38 seconds left in the game, 40 seconds left in the game. They're back kind of like in their own territory, and they decided to cut it loose and trust Drew Aller in that moment to try to throw the ball downfield and go try to move.
They ran it on a first down. They got 13 yards, and at that time you're thinking, okay, let's try to throw one here.
Yep,
it's not his fault. It's not his fault at all. I mean,
no, thank you. I agree. I thought you might actually try to get on him a little bit.
No, okay. This game is not his fault. Yes. I'm gonna single out. This game is not his fault. He's the head coach. He's the one on the microphone. He is going to get chastised if he kneels the ball out there. He's going to get chastised because you decided to throw there with 40 seconds left.
Yeah.
It's not his fault. Drew Aller tried to throw across his body late into the middle of the field against the Notre Dame secondary when he hasn't completed a pass to a wide receiver all night. Yeah. So my issue with James Franklin and Penn State as a whole is, again, they managed to go through another season, the entire 2024 season, and nobody thinks anything differently of the Penn State program. They didn't go up or down in any of our minds.
Yeah.
They lost to Ohio State. They lost to Oregon. They lost to Notre Dame.
Yeah, lost to the three best teams they played.
They beat Boise State and SMU, and those were playoff games, but we're not, they have more talent than those teams.
Penn State's supposed to win those games. There's a reason they were favored by as many points as they were favored by in those two games by Vegas. They're supposed to win those games. I think every Penn State fan would, if you're being real with yourself, like you would say the same thing. Like you would agree. Like we're Penn State. We're supposed to beat Boise and SMU.
Yeah.
And so I agree with you. I don't think there's any, don't disagree.
Who's going to do better at Penn State than James Franklin has done?
Yeah, the dude wins
unless you're going
games.
Out and you're getting an Urban Meyer or Nick Saban type coach. It's eventually going to happen for Penn State. Penn State fans out there, he's 1-15 against top 5, top 10 teams, whatever it is. The breakthrough will come. Like it's just bound to happen. That's sports. It's a cyclical sport. You're not going to lose forever, right? When you're a program like Penn State.
They've always got dudes, man. This team was the most complete team that I personally can remember, I guess, since probably the, Saquon Barkley and McSorley days. And they've had really good teams since then as well. But the weapons that they had on offense and, dude, the nasty guys they had on defense. And they call it linebacker U for a reason. It's incredible how many years, dating back to as long as I can remember, that they've always got a just dog at linebacker.
Wearing the sticks.
Always wearing the sticks, like Abdul Carter this year. And your Micah Parsons. It was funny, they were making comparisons to different cats in the NFL, and two of the guys they mentioned were former Penn State players.
Yeah.
So as But as far as Penn State, they're going to be really good again next year. They've got to get some receivers. Interesting to see who all ends up going pro for them, who's going to come back, just like every other team. What they end up doing in the transfer portal. They're not a team that goes and just gets a bunch of guys in the portal. I'm sure they'll fill some needs, but back to the drawing board there. And as far as the Irish is concerned, the amount of injuries that they were able to withstand in this game and still find a way to win, just the resolve of Marcus Freeman and this football team it's impressive, man. And Paul Feinbaum actually said something smart and correct and didn't give out some crazy hot take for once. And he said that Marcus Freeman has made arguably the team that the rest of college football loves to hate the most, which is Notre Dame. He's made them more likable than ever before. And it's true. I've got friends in the Deep South that actually, I know for a fact, used to despise Notre Dame.
Yeah.
And they've said a lot of good things about them. And a lot of it's got to do with the guy that's in charge.
Yeah.
That and the way that they play. But the way that they play is because of the man that's in charge. They play hard-nosed, punch you in the mouth, physical, just fundamental football.
Yeah.
And the way that they carry themselves and the way that they play, it's borderline inspiring, to be honest with you.
It really speaks to the culture that he's created there in 3 years. And again, another Notre Dame head coach in his third year going to the national championship. There's some we talked about that at the beginning of the year in the preseason.
I'm gonna say you did, bro. That was a good call by you, man.
I mean, it's not a call. It's just kind of a weird trend. I mean, Brian Kelly did it in his third year. Lou Holtz, Dan Devine, all these guys in their third year for some reason at Notre Dame. So I'm hoping Freeman's there for a long, long time. But when he leaves, whenever that third year comes, just lay your mortgage on Notre Dame making the national championship. But the culture that he's created, and Notre Dame fans are loving right now, dunking all over Brian Kelly, former coach there. Which, to his credit, he did. He took the Irish to a national championship. He took them to 2 more playoffs. He kind of brought them back out from the Charlie Weiss days. They were competitive most years under Brian Kelly. It's just kind of the way he has carried himself and some of his comments leaving the university.
Yes, that's the reason.
Yeah, so that they can have their fun now. He didn't want to be at a place where he thought they couldn't win championships, and he went to a place where he thought he could, and 3 years later, one of them's in the national championship already. So
yep,
there you go. But it should be a good one down in Atlanta. Let's get to the Cotton Bowl. Texas, Ohio State, down in Dallas, down in the snowy Dallas.
Mm-hmm.
Really cold down there, but luckily we got Jerry World, we got an AT&T Stadium, we got indoor stadium, all that stuff. Ohio State, Texas, it was a really good game. I will give Texas, first thing I'll give Texas a lot of credit.
Yep.
After that first drive that Ohio State had, I said, because that was a beautifully scripted drive by Chip Kelly and Ryan Day. And again, their offensive line was just pummeling Texas' defensive line.
Yep.
And we kind of said going into the game, that Texas D line is going to be the best case for them to win. Like, they need to make some plays. And after that first drive, you're like, holy cow. Every other drive after that, the Buckeyes offensive line got handled.
Yep.
And I think it's no secret that that's right now probably their weakest part of their game, and the weakest part of their team is their offensive line.
Yeah, Chip Kelly and Ryan Day have done an amazing job of scheming to work around it. They just have. They've killed teams with the explosive play. Because they've got such explosive, just freak skill position players on their offense, they finally unleashed them here in this playoff. And getting the ball out quick with Will Howard, getting it into the hands of these explosive players, even the deep balls downfield, like in the Oregon game and the Tennessee game, weren't Will Howard dropping back and long developing passing plays. They were a 3-4 step, plant that back foot, let it rip. And Texas, backed up both of their safeties deep in this game and said, we want to see if you, Ohio State, with these explosive athletes, will remain patient. Will you take what we're giving you, these underneath, like early on, like I remember talking to my dad he was here watching the game, and he was like, good Lord, at the cushion that they're giving these receivers and just allowing them to catch those like 7-8 yard pass, and they're going straight down the field. Well, what ended up happening was the more plays that Ohio State ran, the more opportunities for them to make mistakes, as in the penalties. That Travion Henderson 15-yard boneheaded deal that he did when he popped up, and that's not him. I mean, that was just a deal that he did that he lost his cool in the heat of the moment. That 15-yard penalty changed a lot. Ohio State looked like they were on their way again to going up either 14-0 or 10-0 at that point. And when that happened, it just changed everything, turned everything around. And Ohio State had multiple times during that first half where driving the ball, and they had a drive-killing penalty, a hold, illegal hands to the face, the personal foul on Henderson, whatever it may be. And Texas's game plan, they were triple teaming on some occasions, Jeremiah Smith, and so that's why Buka ended up having a much bigger game. Carnell Tate had a bigger game than normal, but they were keeping everything in front of them. And then, eventually, like you said, that defensive front for Texas ended up causing a lot of problems. Both of these teams along their defensive fronts have dudes that are going to be game wreckers even to the NFL level.
Yeah.
And, dude, it was both. And, dude, that game and the Orange Bowl, the line of scrimmage play was not for the faint of heart.
Yeah.
It just wasn't. But the end of the first half, the screen pass to Travion Henderson.
Just a backbreaker.
It was. That
was probably the most important play of the game looking back on it.
That
was more important than Jack Sawyer's touchdown.
Yes. There were Ohio State accounts that I saw on X that were even saying after the game, as great as that game was and as great as the Jack Sawyer interception return, all of that stuff was, if Travion Henderson doesn't take that screen pass the distance at the end of the first half, Buckeyes probably don't win that game.
Yeah.
That's hindsight, but that's
because Texas had clawed all the way back. I mean, they
all
just
the momentum
struggle on offense all half. Finally get a little wheel route to the running back, which Sark just loves. And Ewers put a nice ball on him. They tied it at 7. We even tweeted out, I can't believe this game's tied at 7 at the half, and had to, do a correction tweet because, very next play. I mean, and Travion Henderson is just so stinking fast, even with the ball in his hands. It's unbelievable. And you kind of thought right then and there, shoot, that was Texas's chance to go into the half tied. You feel good, and then they bust that. And obviously, Texas, they just kept fighting, man. Like you said before the game, I was lower on them than you were. You just said they got enough about them that they're going to make this a game. And they did, man. They tied it back up in the fourth quarter, 14-14.
I mean, the difference in, when you have teams that are both this talented, it's this highly contested as it ended up being. If you look, too, at the box score, 370 total yards or 341. Neither team could run the football at all because of how just elite these two defensive fronts are for both of these teams, how good the two defensive coordinators are, the schemes, the players, the coaches, all of it. There's just a lot of guys that are going to be playing on Sundays on both these defensive fronts, and they shut down the run game.
But I think Texas' defense did really well because if you look at their first drive for Ohio State, they had 65 yards, and then they had that 75-yard touchdown.
Yeah.
Other than that, you're talking, a little over 200 total yards for Ohio State offense, and especially Jeremiah Smith. A lot is being made about him. 1 catch for 3 yards. But that's also the scary thing, too, is they can put up 230 yards, and he can have 1 catch for 3 yards, and they can still go out and win by 14.
Yeah, dude, the Buckeye defense is just so nasty, man. I mean, it's ridiculous. Again, we talked about the Oregon game, how nobody could get open in that game. And this one, too. I mean, we're talking about Texas here, the Steve Sarkisian Texas offense. This was another one where at one point you're like, is any wide receivers in the second half? They were killing them with a pass to the back out of the backfield. Ohio State just refused to cover the back out of the backfield.
Yeah.
And so Texas was hitting them with that. But at one point you're like, there's no receivers catching the football for Texas. Isaiah Bond had that drop that he had there in the second half, crucial drop. But overall, I mean, nobody
Golden
could
was
get
out for a quarter and a half, 2 quarters, right?
Yep. Nobody could get open in the second half in the secondary for Texas. Caleb Downs and Latham Ranson, good Lord, the play that they have from the safety position, it's as elite as you'll see at the college
Yeah.
football level, that pair together. And I think you could break this down, man, honestly, into 3 plays. The Travion Henderson screen, the toss sweep at the goal line on second down by Texas, deciding to do that, and then obviously the strip sack by Jack Sawyer. Those 3 plays is really what the game came down to. I know everybody's killing Sark for the second down toss sweep. I get it. But this was something that has plagued Texas for 2 years straight now. If you listen to this show before this game, we talked about how a key to this game would be red zone for Texas, red zone offense.
Ohio State was the #1 red zone D in the country.
And Texas was ranked in the 100s in red zone offense. They were ranked in the 80s in red zone offense last year. 2 years ago, when they had Bijan Robinson and Roschon Johnson, they were top 15 in the country in red zone offense. Since then, they've been awful. And even Nick Saban talked about it with Sark. I was actually remembering this. It was, I think it was before the Arizona State game. He was on the field talking to, the game day crew. And Saban asked Sark right there on the spot, say, Coach, the red zone offense is something that's been plaguing you all year. What do you got to do to fix that? And, of course, Sark gave a politically correct answer, but he told Saban, yeah, you're right. It's definitely something that we're trying to fix, and here's how we got to fix it. They never fixed it. Yeah. And that reared its ugly head in the biggest moment of the season. You're sitting there at the 1 yard line, and they can't get in.
Yeah.
They can't get in. And they run that tall sweep play. And I know they were trying to get it on the perimeter because they just didn't feel like the matchup wasn't right. They're up the middle. But why would you, in your short yardage offense for the last however many weeks, when they're in the middle of the field or when they're anywhere else on the field, they bring in Arch Manning in their short yardage offense? And they look like they had zero intention of doing that.
What do you think Notre Dame's going to do in that situation when they get there against Ohio State?
Yeah.
They're going to take Riley Leonard and they're going to run him right up the middle. It may not work, but they're going to do what they've done all season, which is what Texas has done, and they brought in Arch Manning. For some reason in this playoffs, Sark has decided he refused to do that. And
yep, they brought him in against Clemson in short yardage situations around the goal line, and he scored.
Yeah.
But I don't understand why that wasn't after first down when you didn't get in. That's just, and in hindsight, obviously it's easy to say this, but I think a lot of other people are saying the same thing. The fact that it wasn't looked at to go to Arch in that situation, to where that #1 red zone defense in the country is already hard enough to score on for Ohio State.
I mean, we saw what Penn State did to him in the regular season. Just 4 straight times right up the middle with their running backs. It's hard to score on them.
Yep. So you having to account for the quarterback in the run game as well is something that it's the only really chance I feel like that you have really to solve that defense for Ohio State, the red zone defense, to be able to try to score. And
also in Texas' defense, though, there's only one team in the country who's got Caleb Downs playing 2 yards from the line of scrimmage and just flying right through there and giving the running back no chance.
Yeah, dude. As soon as the ball was snapped, the replay from that, he diagnosed that like immediately.
Yeah.
And I mean, his assignment too in that situation is if there's anything to the perimeter, you just immediately get downhill and blow it up. That's what he did. Yeah. I think it's pretty fitting too that Jack Sawyer, who ended up being I think he was the #1 recruit in the country coming out of high school from the state of Ohio.
Ryan Day's first recruit.
Yeah. Yep. From the state of Ohio. The fact that his lasting memory as a Buckeye, if he ended up winning the national championship, it seemed like the most the picture that everybody would have in their minds outside of Ohio State was that moment of him standing on the field with the assistant coach and Ryan Day when Michigan was trying to plant that flag, and he's yelling, They're not going to effing plant that flag on our field, bro.
Yeah.
Like, everybody saw that. Everybody watched that. That was like kind of what he was from the outside world, what most people were talking about with him. And then he comes in this playoff, and 3 games straight, he has wrecked opposing offenses.
Yeah.
3 games straight. And him going down the sidelines, as much as I hate to say this, because when Zeke Elliott went, whatever it was, like 85 yards against Alabama, they called it 85 yards through 75 yards, however many yards it was. They said, I'm going to say 85. 85 yards through the heart of the South was what that play was called. When Zeke Elliott ran his touchdown against Alabama in the first ever CFP 14 playoff. And funny story about that, if you pull that highlight up right now, right after he scores, they take a shot to the crowd of the Alabama student section. There's just one guy standing there with his arms crossed with this really angry look on his face in the crowd. It's me on ESPN. So many people took a screenshot of that and sent that all over social media. So I was there live when that happened. Yeah. And so now they're calling Jack Sawyer the Jack Sawyer through the heart of Texas.
Yeah.
Because it was in Dallas against Texas, all that. So fitting into the game that it was him that ended up scoring that play, scoring that touchdown.
Yeah.
And, I mean, like you said, valiant effort by Texas. They played their tail off. They had their chances. I agree with Andy Staples in the fact of we might still be sitting here watching this game, watching them play. If Texas gets in the end zone there, we might still be watching them trade 2-point conversions right now in the overtime.
Yeah, like we said, it's too much to overcome for Texas ultimately in the end. Quinn Ewers declared for the NFL before the game and went out and
before the game. Yeah, he did.
Yeah, he went out and he made some plays, made some passes, but his pocket awareness is not always there. It seems like he steps into sacks like so many times.
I've never seen a quarterback step up into you can't. I will say this: you can't say that dude's scared.
Yeah,
I mean, instead of trying to like escape what dude, he just steps up into the pressure.
Yeah,
like it's wild.
I'll give him some credit. I've seen a lot of Texas fans in the last 48 hours on social media saying, thank God Quinn Ewers is gone. Thank God we can move on to Arch. Do these fans not remember where Texas was before Quinn Ewers became their quarterback?
Yeah, dude. Besides that 1 year for Sam Ehlinger when he did the "we're back" moment there in the Sugar Bowl.
They weren't.
Agreed. The Quinn Ewers helped put this program back at the top tier of college football.
Yeah.
No doubt about it. I know that they've got elite talent around him on both sides of the ball, which is obviously the overall recruiting and the talent acquisition and the program that Sark and his coaching staff is running. And let's just call it what it is. I mean, it's no secret that Texas got back to where they were too during this NIL era when they've got more money than they know what to do with, and they're able to go out and acquire all this talent. That helps. Yeah. That's not a shot at Texas, by the way, being able to do that. It's all legal, and it's the times that we live in. It's just true. Oregon's doing the same thing. Ohio State's doing the same thing. Michigan's doing the same thing now, whatever. When it's no secret that Texas was able to get like this during this time. But to your point, Quinn Ewers was QB1 during this era.
Yeah.
And his play and his ability, while sometimes it did leave you desiring more and he may not have been elite like you wanted to see him be, he still was good enough to get you to back-to-back semifinals for Texas. And I agree with you. Enjoy it. Love it. It's amazing that how quickly that a lot of these folks forget where they were just a few years ago without him as their quarterback.
Also, it's tough to get an elite quarterback. Like, it's just, there's not a lot of them out there. And if you look at the quarterbacks in the Final Four of this year,
I was about to go there.
They're not elite.
No.
None of them are elite. I mean, if Cam Ward would be playing at Texas right now, they may be in the national championship game. I don't know. Like, it's just, it's tough to have an elite quarterback. You can have all kinds of talent around a great quarterback and still have a really good season. And sometimes you just have to fit the right pieces together.
Yep.
And, obviously Ohio State and Notre Dame have done that. So they will move on from Ewers. It will be Arch's team. Later on this week, we're going to dabble into our extremely too early top 12 for 2025. And I got a feeling these two teams will be on there.
Yeah.
So keep on the lookout for that content. But real quick, for the last couple of minutes, let's look ahead to the national championship game. Early thoughts: Ohio State, Notre Dame in Atlanta, January 20th, 7:30 kickoff, I believe. You've got Ohio State, just all the talent in the world. Notre Dame, talented team, a lot of injuries. Nobody's going to argue that Ohio State's, that Notre Dame is more talented than Ohio State. They're not. The quarterback matchup is going to be interesting. These two guys weren't highly touted, coming out of high school and really even in the portal. I mean, they were high portal quarterbacks because there's not a lot of portal quarterbacks out there. And it seemed like Ohio State and Notre Dame knew exactly who they wanted for these teams and who they wanted to lead these teams in the 2024 season, and that was Will Howard and Riley Leonard. News already out: Anthony Knapp, starting left tackle for Notre Dame, is out for the game. So it must be a bad injury for him. He was already in, out of pads on the sideline.
Join the long list.
Yeah, so and everybody's banged up. I know Ohio State, they suffered a couple. I mean, JTT had a little banged up ankle there in the first half. So
Simon went down a little bit, and I think he came back in, linebacker for Ohio State.
Yeah, so. And we know Ohio State's had issues on the offensive line.
Yep.
So I think my initial thoughts, since I've got, a little vested rooting interest here, my initial thoughts is it's going to be very, very tough for Notre Dame to win this game. Very tough.
Yeah.
The spread does not lie. It's 9.5. And you're thinking, okay, like, looking at
Bet has it currently at 8.5, but
okay,
it opened 9.5. It's currently sitting around 8.5, 9. So it's kind of flirting around it.
If you look at SP Plus, you look at K Ford ratings, all that, these two teams are very, very closely power rated.
Mm-hmm.
So you see a spread of 9.5. Obviously, they don't factor in injuries, but Vegas is usually onto stuff. Like they're usually pretty good with these spreads for a reason. This one has a potential. I'm not going to give a odds or a percentage wise, but it's got a potential to get ugly for Notre Dame if they don't do the right things. If they start off like they did against Penn State in the first half, this could get ugly. If they do what Texas did and they force Ohio State into some second and third and longs, whether it be by getting them behind the chains and disrupting that offensive line, or by Ohio State committing a lot of penalties, that'll help them out a lot. I think it'll be an interesting matchup. Everyone's going to talk about it ad nauseum all week. Notre Dame secondary versus the wide receivers of Ohio State. It's just tough to contain that many weapons, man. Like we saw Jeremiah Smith with one catch, and you got Egbuka and Tate having great games, and you having G. Scott out there at tight end having a good game. And then you've got Henderson and Judkins, doing their thing from the running back position. And it's just tough. I do think that Notre Dame's defensive line could have an edge against Ohio State's offensive line.
Yep.
But again, that scheme blocking that Chip Kelly and Ryan Day are going to come up with, that should bode well for Ohio State. On the offensive side of the ball for Notre Dame, man, like I'll say the same thing I said for Texas. Like to me, it's going to be tough for Notre Dame to score.
Yeah, it's going to be tough, bro.
I don't know how much success they're going to have in the run game. They're for sure going to have to start opening it up a little bit more earlier than they did against Penn State.
Yep.
Penn State's got a great defense. Like that game they played with Ohio State earlier this year, that was 20-13, right?
Mm-hmm.
They've got a great defense. All these teams are very similar. When you get to this point, you got a great defense no matter what. Just so much talent on the Ohio State side, man. It's going to be tough for the Irish.
Yeah, what makes Ohio State different, man, is they've just got elite, like NFL guys at every level of their defense. Like the fact that their secondary is as good as it is, they've got arguably the two best safeties in all of college football on their team. One of the best middle linebackers in all of college football. Multiple D linemen that are just ridiculous from the inside and on the edges. So yeah, it's no doubt, bro. It's a tall task, man. Like, I mean,
I want so bad to believe that Notre Dame's got a fighting chance, but it's gonna be tough.
But hey, I'll say this, man. I would not count out this Notre Dame team with their resolve, and I know this
Eventually,
is
the injuries are going to catch up with them.
I agree. You heard me say that before the Georgia game. I said I thought that going into that game that eventually these injuries to just do not formidable starters. We're talking about some of their best players and most important players that keep going out over and over again every single game. And obviously their physical brand and style of football is just wearing and tearing on them, man. It's the longest season we've ever had in college football history. And that's just wearing and tearing on them week in and week out. I'm with you on the far as the matchup. I mean, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to know that the stuff that NFL scouts are going to be drooling over will be the matchup of the Notre Dame secondary versus the Ohio State wide receivers. These are the two best secondaries in college football. I feel pretty confident in saying that this year, corner, safety, as far as the entire unit, these are the two best. So Notre Dame primarily plays man-to-man. So you've said it before. Normally Al Golden and this Notre Dame defense, they're going to do what they do and be who they are. I would be a little surprised if they don't try to mix it up and try to throw a little wrinkle in here and there, maybe try to throw a little bit of zone at them. That's what Texas did. And obviously it slowed down Jeremiah Smith a little bit, but I also could see Al Golden and Marcus Freeman, as much as belief and love that they have for their players and as much as belief that they instill in them, that I could see them thinking and believing that their corners and their safeties and their guys are good enough to go out there and go toe-to-toe with them and play man-to-man. So I think you're obviously going to see that a lot. But the biggest advantage that Notre Dame has in this game is it's very obvious. It's the defensive line against Ohio State's offensive line. What can Al Golden? And Al Golden blitzes, I think I heard someone say 45% of defensive plays they blitz.
Yep.
So obviously you're going to get Judkins and Henderson in the passing game involved. Screens, quick passes, quick throws, stuff like that. Your hot routes to the back, get back out of the backfield. You're going to get a lot of that in this game probably if Notre Dame is dialing it up. But that is where they can hang in this game, is if they can got to stop the run, because if Ohio State's running the ball, you're dead. You're done.
Yeah.
That's why Oregon couldn't stop the run, and then they were getting just destroyed in the passing game because they couldn't stop anything with Ohio State. If Notre Dame stops the run, you got to just hope that your corners and safeties, your secondary, can match up and put up a fight. And then what can you do when Ohio State does inevitably get into the red zone? Holding them to 3 instead of allowing them to get in the end zone. Holding them to 3. That'll be huge, because I do think Ohio State's going to be able to move the ball a little bit in between the 20s because they're just too talented not to. So keeping them out of the end zone. On the offensive side of the ball, it's just no doubt, bro. They're going to have to open it up a little bit. They're going to have to find some wrinkles. But hey, like we just said a minute ago, these are the two best teams in the country with, as far as combination of offensive coordinator and defensive coordinator. This is number 1 and number 2. Mike Denbrock and Al Golden for Notre Dame, and Chip Kelly and Jim Knowles for Ohio State. This is the best combo of coordinators in all of college football. So these guys are too good, man, to just, with this much time to prepare. I promise you Denbrock's not going to come into this game and be like, well, we're just going to run right into the teeth of this defense and see what happens. They're going to run the ball. Yes, that's what Notre Dame does. But they will have some wrinkles. They will have some things that they'll throw at them here. No different than they did in that fourth quarter against Penn State when they opened it up a little bit. And you saw that Notre Dame does have some weapons with Jaden Greathouse and a few of those cats on the perimeter. Jadarian Price and Jeremiah Love on one leg. they're still elite tandem of tailbacks. So I expect Notre Dame to throw some wrinkles at them. But, dude, I'm with you. It's going to be a very tall task. And I do think there is obviously a chance and an opportunity here where Ohio State could get on them a little bit.
Yeah.
But I'm not counting them out, bro. I'm not counting the Irish out.
Yeah, I appreciate that. We're gonna. That's an early look at the game right now. Subscribe to this channel. Subscribe for more content all week. We're gonna come out with our actual national championship preview later on this week.
And hey, hit
that subscribe button.
Head on over to, like Tyler says, subscribe on YouTube. like, comment. That obviously helps us out. If you enjoyed, we're not asking for freebies. If you like what we're our content and like our breakdowns, give us a like, throw a comment in there. Even if you disagree, that's fine. Like, we can take it. We're grown men. Like, we'll comment back and forth with you. Throw some comments in there, but also, hey, follow us on X, follow us on Instagram. We've got some awesome reels and different memes that Tyler throws out there that people obviously love, judging by the numbers of that. TikTok, while it's apparently still around, follow us on TikTok. We've got stuff there. So yeah, hit us up on our socials. Hit that follow button on Apple and Spotify. If you listen on Apple and Spotify, like I said, it helps us out. We appreciate it.
Yeah. That's it, man. That's it for the show tonight. We got 4 quarters left, 60 minutes.
Yep.
That's it.
60 minutes for the rest of our lives.
Until August, man. So, again, it's another season that went by quick.
Yep.
Too quick in some cases. So, we appreciate you guys tuning in. We'll be back midweek and, to talk about National Championship preview. We'll obviously be here after the game to talk about the recap, and then we'll dive into off-season stuff, all off-season. So appreciate you guys following along, supporting the show, supporting us. It's been a great season. We're not done yet. 4 more quarters. Let's see what can happen with the Irish and the Buckeyes. Appreciate you guys tuning in. Until next time.